Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So we were talking about some of the differences in our personalities.
Yes.
And one of the more striking differences between us is that I am much more of a risk taker than you are.
Yes. And I tend to veer on the side of risk management.
I guess we make a good team then. Although maybe I keep your hands full.
You do, yes. There's a little bit too much risk for my liking. I like to have more time to think about things. You like just to forge on ahead. Full steam ahead it is with you, always.
And though, as we were talking...
And you like to course correct as you go, which is a great virtue. I will give you that 100%. But it's taken me a while to get on board with that mindset.
Well, I usually trust that things will work themselves out in the process and that I'll learn as I go, and that any things that don't go as I'm planning, I'll learn from that and figure it out.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think it's taken me a long time to learn that that's a better way of operating. Whereas in the past, I have tried to imagine all the pitfalls, and in the process have probably really hampered my progress.
And one of the things that I didn't even think about this before, but if I didn't have that trait, we wouldn't even be together.
That's true. We wouldn't have been together.
So Angus and I met kind of by chance, in a sense. I was a student getting my master's degree, and I would get my hair cut for free at Vidal Sassoon in exchange for doing some modeling for them when they needed it. And I was right at the end of my master's program, writing my thesis, the final, getting it written, and I was in the flow of it, and I got a call from my hairdresser, and he said, "Oh, Rohini, we really like you to come in for a photo shoot." And I'm like, "No, I'm sorry. I really, I can't do it this time. Really apologize, but I'll do it, the next time. But I'm in the middle of my thesis, and I've got to get it written." And then he says, "Well, we have this photographer coming from London, and I really think you should meet him." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then the next thing he said was, "And when you come in the back door so nobody sees you, and I will bring you clothing to wear. I will have your makeup done, and then you will be presentable to be seen." And I was like, "Okay, whatever."
He must have been bad, because I think generally the rule of thumb is that most art directors would tell the models to come in looking as plain can be, so that the photographer and art directors get to see the candidates for the shoot in their unadulterated, unmade-up state.
Well, how bad do you think I was?
Well, evidently I didn't think you were that bad. Anyway, continue with your story.
Well, then the next part of it was I went in the back door. I'm going up stairs up the back staircase in my glasses and whatever my student clothing was. And as I'm walking up the staircase, you were walking down the staircase.
That's right.
And so that was when we first met, in the before picture.
My chat-up line was, "Nice glasses,"
which I later found out you didn't like.
Oh, I think they just reminded me of my mum. My mum used to wear horn-rimmed glasses, and I don't think I'd ever seen anyone of your age bracket wear horn-rimmed glasses, which I kind of thought it's kind of a bit of a hipster vibe.
It was a bit edgy.
It was a bit edgy.
So then, after
I was thinking, I can't wait to get those glasses off later.
No, you weren't, because you're not a risk taker.
Because I'm not a risk taker, you're the risk taker.
So then anyway, I didn't end up doing the shoot, and Angus planned it so that I had to wait all day in the waiting area to be the last person photographed. And I would say there was some electricity, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely.
There was definitely sparks flying. And so it just made sense to me that at the end of the day, at the end of the shoot, that I would ask Angus to go out.
I mean, she's awfully forward,
But I didn't really think twice about it.
No, you didn't. And so to get this story, I mean, so I would have probably thought I would have thought about asking you out under different circumstances. But the prevailing circumstances were that my parents were in town, coincidentally visiting one of my sisters who lived in Toronto at the time. So this was a big deal made out of by my father, that was going to be this kind of family reunion taking place that evening. And it just happened to coincide with the Canadian leg of our trip that was going all across North America, going to all these different salons, doing these photo shoots, doing these auditions, and then doing a photo shoot the following day. So we had a very limited time in each city, and so I had a very limited time in Toronto. And part of that limited time was dedicated to visiting my sister and having dinner with her and her family and my parents on that particular Saturday night. So when Rohini asked me out for dinner, I actually had to say no, I can't make it, which I think she was a little bit taken aback by.
But then who suggested lunch?
I think I suggested lunch. I could maybe do lunch the following day, which would mean that probably a couple of hours before going back to the airport.
But if I hadn't asked you out for dinner that night, you wouldn't have even thought about lunch.
No, I don't think anything would have come of it. Absolutely.
I never would have seen you again.
I was just happy to spend the day flirting with an attractive woman. And that would have probably been that. You've never seen me again.
So I think that my willingness to be rejected and take risks is a good thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there's so much virtue in that. And I really now, upon reflection, you know, with the benefit of hindsight, I think that life would have looked entirely different for me, a lot more fulfilling, a lot more successful, perhaps, if I had been more willing to take risks and course correct along the way. But I did have a tendency to get very preoccupied with all the possible pitfalls, which could, as I said before, you know, be very inhibiting. And there's something really quite exciting about coming up against a possible pitfall, or knowing that there are going to be those possibilities, and then forging on ahead. And you'll get course-corrected feedback. I would have got course-corrected feedback that could have felt quite negative at the time, but the trick would be not to take that personally, because it's all a numbers game at the end of the day, isn't it? We, you know, we have our moments of despair, and we have our moments of joy and wonder. It's like watching a football game when I watch Chelsea play. You know, there are moments where I get to really get, you know, when they lose and lose badly because they're not playing well, I can go to the depths of the despair. But I think that juxtaposed to that is the moments when they win and win trophies. Those are great moments, but they wouldn't feel nearly so profound if they hadn't had those moments where they lost badly. So it's just, you know, at the end of the day, if I can put myself in a situation where I don't take personally those moments where the negative feedback feels painful, and just accept that that's just part of life, that's part of the process. We get feedback when we move forward. I think that would have served me well. And you know, now I try to embrace that philosophy as much as possible, just to move forward, keep moving forward. I'll get course-corrective feedback, and my opportunity now is to not get absorbed into my thinking and to take it personally.
Well, I think that what's interesting is that I still had all of that thinking. I just didn't pay attention to it. It wasn't like it wouldn't occur to me what could go wrong or what might happen, but I just didn't think that that was a reason not to move forward.
I know. I mean, that's a great quality, a great trait to have. You know, as much as I can imbibe that mindset into my kids, I think that would serve them really well. But for me, I know that I spent a good portion of my life really operating on that level of just, you know, worrying what was around the corner and how am I going to anticipate, you know, any number of things that could go wrong, and then actually putting myself into such a state of fear that more often than not, I probably might not even make any step in that direction.
Well, it's the difference between being on the sidelines or actually getting in the game.
Oh, yes. Get in the game, isn't you?
Sports analogy for you.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%. But yeah, we wouldn't have met. I mean, we would have met. We wouldn't have gone out. We would have
just met. That would be
exactly. We would have just met, and that would have been it. Game over.
So it's not impulsiveness.
No, it isn't. It's kind of, you know, you acted on your instinct. You honored your instinct. Perhaps I didn't. I just could see, you know, that it wasn't. I couldn't see the possibilities. You
lived in London. I lived in Canada. You were leaving that night or the next day. You were like, nothing there. Yeah,
to which I had to please my disgruntled father.
Well, he wasn't disgruntled until you told him you weren't going to be there the next day.
Exactly, because actually, to wrap this story up, is what's so funny about this is that my father postponed the dinner that night because I think this is what happened. My brother-in-law got tickets to go and see a baseball game. So I went and saw a baseball game with him, and my dad didn't know this, so he had to reschedule the family dining situation to the following day, the Sunday. So we had a Sunday lunch. He had a Sunday lunch booked, and I basically said, "Oh, I can't do that. I'm sorry, because I have a date with this young lady." And it's like, you're putting some young floozy ahead of your family, or words to that effect. And I had to marry Rohini just to repair all the damage that was done on that particular occasion.
Oh, really? Is that your excuse?
Yeah, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Get in the game.
Get in the game. Get in the game.